Hello, welcome back to another 5 channel. I'm JJ Book Tour, and today we are filming a 24-hour readathon vlog. P.S. I already filmed it. But the intro was for a different video, combining two elements that I love, and I still want to make that video. My timing just is horrible. It's just horrible. It was just horrible. I just couldn't do it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with this. In this video, I think I read 11 books, 10 to 11 books in the next 24 hours, or in the previous 24 hours. I don't know. I just want to come here and quickly tell you. I won't go through what we're reading, because I don't want to spoil it, because I know exactly what we're reading, so I don't have an early intro TBR, which I tend to like to do for these 24-hour readathon vlogs. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoy it nonetheless, and let's go ahead and jump into a Jacob in the past who is about to read some books. Good or bad, I don't know. Let's go ahead and jump into a Jacob in a time before about to read some books. I finished my first book. It is this book, Scary Stories, Bad Stories, Something in the Dark by Adam Ellis. I want to say it's Adam Ellis. He was a comic that I've seen quite a few different times on Twitter. It was viral for a few of these, one of them being, there's one or two in here that are from his more viral tweets and things. So I figured I'd give it, well, I put a space into it for an e-arc. I was like, okay, if I get it, then I'll read it. If I don't get it, fine, I won't read it. I got it. I read it. The majority of them I didn't really care for. Really sucks, especially when you get an e-arc. It's like you want to put as much good news out there as possible for people to get excited for this release. And I think maybe I would have benefited better if this was like a full-fledged new story. It wasn't promoted as such. It sets other stories, letting you as, the viewer know that there's other stories to be told and things. And I think beneficially would have done better if it was a full-length graphic novel sequence story. There's a little too much samesies going on in between. It wasn't really super scary or intense, and I didn't really think a lot of the ideas were fully fledged ideas either. I feel like with comics, and I've seen this a few times with comic short stories, I don't tend to like them, to be fair, just because I think this is what happens, is that because with a short story I feel like you have more time to develop your story that way. Whereas a graphic novel, because it's both a medium where it's pictures and writing, I think the shorter the selling, it doesn't always display correctly, because you're half hoping that the rest of the story is presented in the photos. And because of the way that these are drawn, very grounded, very, not very what I think they're going for, it definitely, in my opinion, makes everything just kind of worse. So I'm going to land on a 3 for it, but we finished our first one. That was an e-arc, so we're moving over. I read the first 15 pages of this yesterday when I decided to do this video kind of stoned. Don't really think I gave it a good shot, so we're going to try it again today. So this is where we're going to start with Sharks in the River. We'll move on to I think we'll probably do Saga after Sharks in the River. Sharks in the Rivers by Ada Lemon, I think is how you pronounce her name. I thought it was okay. I think is where we're landing on this. Stone Jacob was not completely wrong. I don't think everything truly worked for me in here. Just like Stone Jacob didn't think it would. So, gotta give him props. He wasn't exactly wrong. I'm gonna land on, I want to say a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's definitely wouldn't be my go-to recommendation for a poetry collection. If you love nature and you have the idea of using nature in a symbolic way to describe different things, then maybe this will be for you. It's very speculative. It's very figurative. There's a lot of lines where I'll go back and forth between something very grounded into something very unrealistic, which for some of the poems really works. For other poems, I just felt like for other poems, I just don't feel like it worked as well, if it makes any sense. I still think the cover is gorgeous, but just not for me. This is the third book, right? Because I just finished Elton John's, which I don't know if I might count for you guys. If so, I'll talk about it later. It's over there. We're done with this one. That means I'm gonna move on to Saga. Now, Saga's interesting because it is over here. And I have a physical copy of volume 11. I just don't know what I've read of this, so we're gonna do some cross-reference and figure out if there's anything in here that I've not read of Saga yet. And I'll get back to you. Technically, there were 3 issues in here that I had not read yet, so we'll just count the whole booklet. I think overall, Saga Volume 11, I think is going to get a 4, a solid 4. It's nowhere near as strong as the series once was, and it's still yet to tackle the really big difficulties of its somewhat conclusion before it came back. And I'm enjoying the fact that it's back. Now it's on break again. It's been on break for quite a few months, apparently. That I'm excited to read more. There are some tiresome things in here that I feel like it's a bit dated, and they continue onwards because that's where the story was built. So there's elements of it that are really working that still continue to work to this day. There's not a lot of elements to the point where I'm recommending new people. I don't think I'll recommend Saga until I read the end of Saga, whenever that is. And from the looks of it, at least on Goodreads, they did mark it out places for volumes 11, 12, 13, and 14. So 12, 13, 14, and this had 6 issues in it, 6 or 7 issues that came out over the course of a year for a single one, which means we have at least 4 or 5 more years worth of saga before it's done. I don't know. We'll see. Because, like, I've been reading it for such a long time. It started so long ago. Moving on. And you guessed it, we're moving to an E1. I don't know what we're going to read today on my e-reader. What are we going to pull out of here? We have 2 options. We can read Attack Titans. We can read The Walking Dead. I also could read the manga on my phone. I think we're going to start with The Walking Dead and then move on from there. So I'm on volume 3, Safe Behind Bars. It looks like this. If you're familiar with the TV show at all, I'm sure you've seen this image before. Being said, I'll update you in, I actually don't know how long this is. 139 pages is when I'll update you. Alright, I finished volume 3. It was a 3-star. Nothing too particular. Honestly, it kind of made me not enjoy reading. We're gonna move on. Let's move on. We're gonna read Above Ground. And we'll see if this is another one that I like or when I don't like. This is a second collection. I'm assuming it's a man. It is a man. It's a longer poem collection. I don't know. Sometimes I like long poems, sometimes I don't like long poems. It really depends on what it's for. What's the point of it? What's your get at? So let's go ahead and see what Clint Smith's get at is. I'll update you after I read 107 pages. 4.5. Hear me out. I think some things in here are fucking brilliant. So brilliant. But also I think there's like a few things here that I didn't care for, but it wasn't about me. To be fair, this is what my favorite type of poetry collection is. It is a memoir with information. That is what I like in a poetry collection. I like to know about the reader, what makes them tick, what makes them, or I guess the writer, and what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what do they care about? What is the point of this? Why are you telling me about these stories? What brings it to you? Like overall, like what is the point? That is my goal. That is what I want to know as a consumer. Especially with poetry collections that are just all fluff. I don't understand like the true point of those because I'm not learning anything from this. Not that poetry you have to learn something. I've written many poems in my life where there was little to no meaning at all to them. They were just fun. And which is great, but I have no intentions of ever trying to get those published or sell them or like whatever it might be. So I feel like with the poetry collection, especially a third one out, I should very much know what the point of this is. Big point of this is being a parent and what that means. Growing up as a parent, what that means. Seeing your child develop into something new. What does that mean? Pregnancies and what's that look like and those things because he is a father and that's a big part of this. I will have to tell you this much though. The opening poem in here, which is called All at Once. Pretty sure. Let me make sure. Yeah, All at Once blew me out of the water. And continuously throughout the collection, there are many little vignettes about different aspects of life that refer back to this one poem, and that is what grounds it. This one poem, it grounds it throughout the entire way. There's little vignettes, and the vignettes are beautiful and crucial. And there's some stuff they talked about that are about his child or about his wife and things. I do find it interesting. I find the more interesting about the people before him and what that means and what that looks like for his grandfather and those type of things. But I found the whole collection to be very beautiful, and on a great note, I quite enjoyed, and talked about a lot of good things, a lot of beautiful things also in here. So yeah, I have to say, I will say this is a 4.5. Highly recommend. Could not recommend more. That being said, I have to run upstairs real fast. When I get back, we'll jump into this behemoth of a thing. Alright, so I just got done reading The White and Blue Between Us by somebody. I'm not entirely sure. Sorry about that. I'm sure in my review on Goodreads, I have the author's name to talk about it. I felt like it was a really sweet romance. It's a BL manga, which I've not read many of. This was a spicier BL manga. I don't know how spicy these tend to get. But when I read before, that was also an arc. It was more on the lines of like a YA. So they barely kissed. I think it was like a single kiss manga, whereas this one they kissed a bunch and they definitely had sex a few times, so that was kind of shocking. I was like, oh, we're doing the whole sex thing and we're doing it for pages and pages. This is interesting. Wasn't expecting this. I'm not mad about it, but I wasn't expecting it. But I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I think I'm landing on like a 4 for it. A lot of people don't like this, apparently. Pretty hated in the community. I don't know if there was a change to it or anything, but I found it to be very, I don't know, I found this one and the last one to be extremely cozy and very like lovable and relatable romances. Also, they gave me like Call Me By Your Name vibes in like a good way, not like in a bad way, because I know like both those kind of, the book and the movie, kind of fallen off hot waters with a lot of people, me kind of included. I liked it though. I also read by Ellen John. This is Ellen John's autobiography that he wrote, or memoir, I guess, because autobiography means the other person wrote it for him. He didn't actually write it. And his little memoir that he put together documenting his life, which was quite tragic. If you're not familiar with his life, I listened to it, so I didn't get to see the pictures. So I'm looking at the pictures while we talk. It was very sad. He was so much more sadder than I remembered. Lots of moments where I just hurt for him. Was hoping the whole entire time that he would have a happier ending than he did in the beginning. Because if anything, he deserved it the most. He went through so many hard things, certain things that he put himself through, where you can't really objectively look at somebody else saying, okay, well this is more like you. But there's also like a lot of other moments in it that are softer and sweeter that you just feel bad because you just want him to be so happy and loving and be loved and to feel this love that he so prominently puts out in this role that he doesn't feel very often. I really liked it. I'll have probably a similar review, probably a similar length of review, for it. Memoirs are weird. Either I have a 49-minute video for you, or I have like 6 minutes worth of thoughts that get cut down to 2 minutes worth of thoughts. That's really how memoirs work for me personally. This is where that one kind of lays. I've listened to it over the last 3 or 4 days. I took a little break from Percy Jackson as I'm not enjoying the Trials of Apollo super duper much. I don't think they're horrible, but I think they're more on the lines of the original Percy Jackson books. I enjoyed my little rest in between as when John read me his story, and I cried a little to it because, like, how could you not if you've read the whole thing? It does make me want to watch Rocket Man. I don't remember it very much, but I liked it when I saw it. And that's what made me thought I had read it, so this did a good job. That being said, we do need to move on. We have more things to read here. I have this behemoth of a graphic novel to read. I could not figure out the page count on it. I sure we tried to figure it out, and I don't think there's a single fucking page number in this book, which is fine. Objectively, it doesn't need to be one, but I'll update you when I finish this. I don't know how long it is. This mostly did not work for me. Should mention, this is a hodgepodge of a bunch of different stories combined into a pretty through line story by the end. All characters in the Bat family going through the greatest traumas, while Joker is being reawoken to torture them to create new trauma. Essentially what this book is about. It's 500 pages long. Did not know. Pretty happy how fast I read it. Because it was long. It was long. It's definitely an adult graphic novel. Wouldn't be for teens. Wouldn't put it in that section if I was like librarying it. I would also say that like it collects from like a lot of middle issues and a lot of different stories. I'm assuming they had a run for Death of the Family that took over several different people's storylines, and then these are the runs that kind of implemented into Joker. And so because Joker himself doesn't have a POV here really, he's just shadowing a bunch of other characters' POVs such as Harley Quinn, Catwoman, Batgirl, those sort of things. The sexualization is pretty heavy, but I think this one came out in like 2013, 2014, which I'd say it's probably the heaviest around that period of time anyways. If I'm gonna be, 2013, which is probably the heaviest it was around that time. These are the most sexy cut outfits. Harley Quinn looks terrible, god awful. Don't get me started. I thought Catwoman looked pretty nice, and I felt Catwoman's story was really interesting, and I don't think they did enough with Joker falling in love with Batman. I never do. There's a few out there that I would recommend. If I could remember the titles of them, I would recommend them to you. But I feel like if you want more like a Joker is a little bit more on the fruitier side, that's where I'd probably go down pathways. You can definitely find them. This is not one of those, though. He is a sadistic motherfucker in it, though, and they do push the envelope in a lot of different areas where it's like deserved and good. But because it does push the envelope so far in certain areas and certain directions, I think it could have went further in others and also took a step back in a few. So overall, I feel like the tone's a really big mixed bag. So I'm gonna have to go with a 3. But I did read the whole behemoth of a thing. I feel accomplished, but at what cost? I think to get the poetry over and done with, and also get rid of all the physicals, and then we'll count up how many books I read in between here and now as I go to my computer. I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at both these collections. So we have Beast Barbarian and then Turn Me Loose, The Unghosting of Margaret Edwards. Both are poetries. Is this a poetry book? Oh my god, did I grab something that was not a poetry book? Oh no, it is. It's just, oh wow. Maybe I'll start with this one. It's a bit longer. No idea it's about. Thought the cover looked really pretty. Normally how my poetry goes. By Roger Reeves, the finalist of the National Book Awards. And I have no idea what we're in for. I'm curious to find out. This one being another one that a little bit maybe over my head. Some of the language and imagery here is very beautiful, I will say, but maybe a little bit far-reaching for me personally. I think some of the concepts that are discussed here is very interesting. He's talking about his father, the death of his father, what that means to him, but also using it in direct things towards like America and how, I don't know, black people are treated in America or immigration and things like that. And there's like a mixture of those like combined and throughout. Once again, we're here with nature playing a big part of this. Also, the Swirl of the Beast That's not the word. You know how, like, as you progress in time, the beast also progress, and that's something that's talked about here. That is, by the way, called best, not beast, but it's also something that's been talked about here. He talks about God, humanity, and where he thinks we're headed with the natural disasters and climate change and causes and things, and what that looks like and what that means to him as a religious person, but not like a fully deeply religious person. Also, what the world looks like as a child, like raising a child, and also this like very how America is still very racist, and what that looks like, and how he's raising his child to be better well-minded and things about those things. I once again enjoyed what was said here quite a bit. I don't know if exactly was for me. I think we're gonna land on like a 4. Still would recommend though. Still would recommend. Just a little bit outside my normal page range, I guess. Word range? I'm not really sure. Moving on to Turn Me Loose, The Unghosting of Medgar Evers, poems by Frank X. Walker, who I so swear I've heard of, but I genuinely don't know. So we're gonna sit down, we're gonna read this. This was a 5-star read. This is the story of Medgar Evers, the head of the National Association of Advancement of Colored People in Mississippi in 1863. He was shot in the back by Byron De LaBackwith in his own driveway and died soon afterwards. It tells the story of how it happened, the story of before, describing everything from the point of view of the wife of him to the person who murdered him and things, and telling the poems through their points of views, trying to educate people on a subject that's not really talked about very much, something I didn't even know. So I'm happy to be educated and happy that this book exists to educate me in a different way than just having used it down to read a textbook. It was essentially the introductions of. He said he got some slack for it. Some people didn't believe everything that was said for obvious reasons, that, you know, he used to do everything by what he thinks would happen in that scenario. I thought it was beautiful. I thought he did a fucking great job. I thought it was very moving. I felt like everything in here was exactly the right caliber. The writing was top notch. 5. I could not recommend it enough. I had no idea the story, which just really shows you this should be a story that's told with a lot of different things. A lot of different stories that are told around this time. A lot of horrible things happened to black people in the 60s and before that, and now, like the overall blatant racism that a lot of people on the internet just want to tell you that's just not there is absolutely insane, and it really just shows you how much the world wants to cover up the mistakes that they've made. Because like I was just thinking to myself, like my little sister who is homeschooled, who I try to slip in a lot of different little things of different cultures in her work, just because I feel like she needs to learn about other cultures, or like what's the point? Like we're building a new generation that needs to do better than our generation, and if I'm gonna do that, then I need to build it. You know, I need be a part of that building block, right? I'm just thinking about like all the schools, Florida in particular, who's banned so many textbooks, so many stories, so many books, and thinking if we don't talk about slavery, if we don't talk about the wars, if we don't talk about how horrible of a group that we are, of North Americans are, then there will be no point. Like then we can move on. But here's the thing, the history has shown time and time again that it has a problem of repeating itself, and if we don't know the backlog, how are we supposed to prevent it? And that's the thing that gets me every time. And like, I pay a lot of attention to gender politics and sexuality news because that really does pertain to me. To be honest with you, I've been following a lot of different stuff. I mean, in this particular video and in several other videos that are on the channel, I have a lot of different, like, foundations that you can go donate to if you can. Obviously, with the war that's going over in Gaza right now, not really a war, a genocide from Israel to Gaza, which is fucking insane. And the more things I hear about, the more things I see from it, the more places that are being bombed, places that they can't even get out of, like, their little area, because there's no place to go, because there's no safe place to go around them, and there's no way to get them across the border. And then if they do get across the border, you know, immigration's like, oh, you have to go home. And how are you supposed to tell people who their entire life is being bombed away from their eyes that they have to go back to it? It's fucking crazy to me right now. And the fact that it's such a huge deal and such a big deal, and the fact that we as a society are not doing enough to step in and stop the genocide that's happening. We are doing history all over again in front of our eyes. Books like this is the reason why these things need to be in schools, need to be showcased to younger minds or maturing minds, people who can go and study these things and be the voices for the next generation. If we're banning all of these, then we're essentially just fucked. This was a 5. It put me in a headspace, but it was a 5. I don't know how many books that is. I'm gonna go load them all into my Goodreads, a few other places that I load my books into. And that being said, we will get back to reading soon. I think the next book I'm gonna try to finish is Trials of Apollo, Book 2, The Dark Prophet. I have such mixed thoughts. I can't really talk to you super much about them because, you know, this is a Percy Jackson book. They get their spoiler mealy vlogs and stuff like that. But I can tell you this much. Apollo is not my favorite, and I've had a hard time wanting to come back to read these. There is that. Especially as we've gone on the quest. I'm like, okay. I'm okay. We'll see how long it takes me to finish this. Welcome to the end of this 24-hour readathon vlog. This is the amount of pages that I read. I'll just put up on the screen. It's like placed in Storygraph, so I have the number, so I'll just place it on the screen. And we'll quickly go over all the books that I read as quickly as possible. Obviously, I talked about them all in this video, so I don't want to go into great detail, because you already seen me talk about them. So we have Turn Me Loose, The Unghosting of Megar Evers. This was a 5-star. Could not recommend more. Saga, Volume 11. I think I landed on a 4-star, a 3.5 4-star. Would recommend the series, but maybe wait till it's completed. I don't know. I used to recommend it all the time, but I don't know if I'm in the same agreement anymore. Above Brown by Quinn Smith. I think I landed on a 3.5. Beast Barbarian by Roger Rivers. I want to say it was a 4. Sharks in the River by Ada Lemon was also like a 3.25. Would recommend all the poetry that I just mentioned, yet some of them are higher level poetry, more than I'm like normally recommending to my average viewer. So we also have Me by Elton John. I didn't talk about this like at all except for briefly reviewing it in this video. I think I gave it a 4. Then we have Joker, The Death of the Family, which I gave a 3. Did not really care for this one. Then for books I do not own, but I did review for you, we have The Light and Blue Between Us. I think it's the one I read for you guys. That was a 5 or a 4.5. Loved it. Very cozy. Excited to read more. I just got another one. Another arc for a BL manga. So like I'm excited to sit down to read that probably today, because like it's gonna be fun and I'm excited. I also read, what did I read for you? I read the short story collection, which was like a horror short story collection on graphic novel form. That was a 3 out of 5 stars. And then we also have the Walking Dead Volume 3, which I gave like a 2.5 because like it did not work. But yeah, that being said, those were the books I read. The standout, the only 5 in this collection that I read for you was the Megar Evers, Turn Me Loose. I just think it's brilliant. I think it was brilliantly done, and I learned so much, which is what I'm always grateful and looking for in poetry for the most part. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love you. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.